Hi, I'm Nolan Finley, and I'm here on the porch of the Grand Hotel with Dr. Antoine Garibaldi, president of the University of Detroit Mercy. And Antoine, you heard the new Detroit School Superintendent, Nikolai Vitae, speak this morning about his plans for the schools. What was your impression?
Well, my impression was very positive. He definitely has some plans. He wants to make some organizational changes. And I particularly like the fact that he talked about growth and stabilizing the school system with students who are already there, attracting students who may have gone to charter or private schools, and then also looking for a new group of students whose parents may not have ever considered going to the Detroit Public Schools. And I think that will work well with some of the influx of young people who are coming back to live in the city.
We have seen a whole series of superintendents come and go in Detroit over the years. What is the obstacle to fixing these schools? Why has it been so difficult and so long a journey?
Well, I think what we've seen in other cities that are very, very large and at one time had lots more students who are attending schools, there was not as much choice as there is today. Okay. So charter schools did not exist, private schools did, small independent colleges did. Not independent colleges, but independent elementary and secondary schools. Now, however, over the last 20, 25 years, you have a lot more charter schools and schools that are run by different companies and the like. So those charter schools have taken away some of the traditional public schools across the country. I can think of Washington, D.C., certainly New Orleans after they went through Hurricane Katrina, and that's my hometown, so I knew it well. And other cities like Cleveland and Chicago, they're looking at a smaller school system, but what we're also seeing is some of those schools that once were under another umbrella beginning to come back to that traditional public school.
Okay, but people pull their children out of schools for a reason. These schools weren't delivering the education they wanted, and so that gave rise to school choice. Is there a way to have an environment of vigorous school choice and healthy, successful public schools?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, parents will talk about the success that their children have had. So it means how well they do on the ACT or the SAT, whether or not the children are learning or get good post-secondary educational opportunities. It's also how they've done on the standardized tests administered by the state. So I think when people see that the results of a school are good, then they tend to send those schools. When I think about 25 years or so ago, it's actually longer than that, many school systems went to like themed high schools, and I heard the superintendent talk a little bit about themed academies as a possibility. So those schools were called, by a different name. They really were not all the same high schools, but they were particular schools that focus in on medicine or on science. And that's something that's happened here, but not to the extent of the results that you really need to have in order to have parents say, well, that sounds like a really good school. I'm going to send my child there.
Is the model of urban education broken? We teach kids in urban school districts the same way we did 50 years ago when the population was more economically diverse, more racially diverse. These children are coming in most urban districts, Detroit in particularly, with extreme disadvantages and hardships, and yet we're treating them the same way as we do kids, say, in a Birmingham school district or a Troy school district. Is that model broken for urban kids?
Well, I think the model is broken for urban kids. It's hard for me to generalize about that, but if you go to any good classroom, and I call a classroom that uses, where the teacher's using multimedia in all of the instruction, not the teacher teaching and the students responding. I mean, they're using calculators, they're using iPads, they're using all kinds of electronic equipment so that the learning is actually integrated. And it's a lot more about the tests. It's about how students actually retain the information and what kinds of things they're actually beginning to transfer to other situations.
Well, Dr. Antoine Garibaldi, we appreciate your thoughts on it, and we'll be talking with you again. Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Yes.